So, good day everyone. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Virginia Ying and I am from BSED-1B. And today's discussion, I'll discuss a varieties of English, world Englishes, and so on. So, the introduction of my topic is concept of varieties and variation must be examined from number of points of view in order to give anything like complete picture or a contemporary world Englishes. The first point of my topic is the reality of native versus non-native. So for a long time, the designations that served as ELT professions were native versus non-native speakers. This reason is not unreasonable on its face. In the US, for example, University of Department of English have always been quite different from Department of Foreign Languages, which are sometimes especially named as the Department of Romance Languages or a French German and so on. So they are virtually always administratively separate from one another. Let's proceed to EFL versus ESL. So second language ESL for migrants to the inner and also as a foreign language or EFL. For learners worldwide in their own context arose to account in some broad ways for differences between situations and acquisitions or learning. So, and we use of English in various contexts. EFL users were those who learned English as a distance from a native speakers and the limited utility to the reading knowledge to keep up with an Western science and technology. So, EFL is a foreign language. ESL is a second language. Argument of culture of speech in community and speech fellowship. The idea of speech community refers to a wide-ranging associations of varieties which be considered to be different from one another in a particular, but which are subsumable as a sub-varieties under a broad label. For example, American, British, Australians, and New Zealand English are different from each other and being codified as distinct varieties. But all of these speech fellowship are members of the same English speaking and speech community. Again, under a broad level, for example, American, British, Australian, and New Zealand English are different from other English, but they are speaking in the same community. Let's proceed to language dialect and variety. So the second point, the problem is Dutch versus German, Chinese, Jamaican, Creole. So in Dutch versus German, the example is the story of North and Wind and the Son of Dutch. And the second is the Chinese. So in Chinese, we have different language or we have different varieties of language. So in Jamaican and Creole, the example is the story of Jamaican Creole language index. Language criteria: standardization, vitality, autonomy, reduction, and norms. Standardization is the development of grammar. Vitality: this refers to the existence of a living community of speakers, thus distinguishing languages which are alive from languages which are dead. Autonomy is a matter of feeling as a rather subjective criterion as a language must be felt. Reduction: reduce written standard functions in a society, help to distinguish varieties from standard languages. So norms between good or bad, where languages normally involve norms, varieties don't the speaker of the language have the feeling that they are good speaker as the good speakers they represent. Dialect and variety. Regional, social, phonological. So in regional, they have difference between the speakers of the language. In social, when two speakers speak with one another, their language is always influenced by a number of social factors. That is, for example, the role of the speaker and the listener, the relationship between them. Language is always influenced by a number of social factors. Phonological. There are varieties influenced by the phonological activities or phonological dialect or varieties. So, there are three circles by Karachu. Kachu. So, there are three circles by Kachu. So, the first one is the inner circle, the outer circle, and the expanding circle. So, in the inner circle, the country that belong to inner circle is in Australia and New Zealand. The outer circle, the country that belongs to outer circle is India, Singapore, and Philippines. The country that belong to expanding circle is China, Indonesia, and Thailand. So let's focus first the inner circle. So what is the inner circle? Okay. Inner circle. The inner circle refers to English as it originally took shape and later was spread across the world in its first diaport. In his transplantation of English, speakers from England carried the language to Australia, New Zealand, and North America, as well as to the extended British Isle or UK in the countries of the seismically up inner circle. English was the primary needed, with the exception of Canada, the sole language of education, of officialdom, and of society of language, or a society at large places. Proceed to the outer circle. The outer circle was produced by the second diaspora of English, which spread to language through colonization in Asia and Africa. This was accomplished via a relatively small number of users sent to parts of the world for a remove from the societies where English was the medium of daily use. Yet, because of the imposed economic, political, and military realities, English became the additional language for many indigenous residents of countries such as India and Nigeria. And then let's proceed the expanding circles. I already said that a while ago that the country belongs to expanding circle is China, Indonesia, and Thailand. So what is expanding circle? The expanding circle represents further diffusions of English propelled by a political and economic influence of British and the USA in East Asia, Middle East, and Latin America. The nation of expanding circle, English has limited rules in the public life, physically in a higher education in science and technology, and a very restricted functions in the person domain. So that is the definition in the explanation as well of the expanding circles. So that's the three circles belong to Karachu, or I don't know how to read it right, Karachu or Kachu, but that's the three circle, the inner, the outer, and the expanding circles. And let's proceed to the third point, B. Okay, the third point, B, range and depth. So let's define first what is range. So In range, in this context of analysis and discussions, refers to all the functions which English has in a given community, context, and education at all levels: business, legal system, and administration, as well in a more intimate domains of family and other social network whose member may or not may share another language. So that is range. Another network whose member may or may not share another language. So let's proceed to depth. So what is depth? Depth of societal penetration refers to the uses of English that are available to people with varying degrees of education who are different socioeconomic levels with different jobs and professions. Different socioeconomic levels with different jobs and professions. So that is the B, range and depth. Let's proceed to nativization and acculturation, the third point, C. So nativization brings forth a new variety of English, and Englishization causes changes of a native language. Both processes are triggered by a language contact, the natural inclination in the users to mold the medium to express relevant contextual realities. So in nativization, we have the varieties of English, and Englishization causes changes in the native languages. And then bilingual creativity. So what is bilingual creativity? It's perhaps most readily thought of a creative writing, whether a prose in the stories or novels, poetry, or play for a theater or a theatre. And this is a creative writing or the bilingual creativity. So the conclusion of this topic is that language defines humans. It is a fully structured of system. Karachu, I don't know how to pronounce it correctly, or I think Karachu, 1997 to 15, clarifies that the concept in this way, the term world Englishes, is not intended to indicate any divisiveness in the English using communities, but to recognize the function of English in diverse pluralistic contexts. So I think that's all. That topic is all about the varieties of English, the world Englishes by the Caraccio, and the other the circles of Caraccio, which is the inner, the outer, the expanding, the native speakers and the non-native speakers. We already talked about that, and I think that's all for this topic. And I think yes, that's all. Thank you.